Hey guys, it's me, EODGamerz here. One of the most frequently asked questions I've been getting ever since like the past couple of days on our members Discord is, why is Exalted price pumping relative to Divine Ops, relative to Chaos Ops, and etc, a lot of the other things. How will it go from here? Or is there something that is moving under the surface that you need to know about? I'm going to be answering all of these questions in this market commentary, as we always do in every single league, and this is what the channel specializes and focuses on, market movements. So don't worry, sit back, relax, I will share with you a lot of data. Now, the first thing that I always like to talk about, instead of just fluffing you something out of thin air, is very nice to look at some quantitative data so that we can base our assumptions from there. Now, I want you to notice these numbers here. 1 is to 57 divine, 1 divine is 57 exalted. This is, of course, in the current league environment. We are 1 week in exactly as of time of recording, and it was a lot higher. It was like 1 divine is to 100 exalted as well. Now, I want you to know something. History always kind of rhymes with itself in terms of the past leagues, and what we have been doing very hardworkingly on every single league so far is I've been compiling. This is the 0.1 league, compiling the movements of data throughout the entire course of majority of the important parts of the league, and we will see how things perform based on that particular patch. So we do tons of these research as well, supported by you guys who actually support the channel as members, and I give you all these information when you need it most too. So this is the first league over here, and we have many things in this chart. The important thing that I need you to notice is the solid black line over here in 0.1 first league. So if you notice this solid black line, Exalted Ops actually remain relatively stable with respect to Divine Ops for a majority of the first part of the league. Whereas Chaos Ops, you can see, went undergo a massive depreciation relative to both Divine. This chart is based off of Divines. So 1 means anything that's above 1 means Divine Ops are underperforming the asset. Anything that is going downwards means that Divine Ops is a much better hedge. So you can see for the half of this entire chart, Divine Ops and Exalteds kind of match pace. Chaos Ops underwent a dip, and this is 0.1 league, the first league ever. And I would argue 1 week in, are we somewhere around here? We could be somewhere around here. The charts always rhyme with each other, but you can always see in the very beginning, Exalt Ops tend to do a bit better, Chaos Ops tend to underperform. Some of you might be wondering, is there a rationale or is it just a one-time thing? The reason for this, and it's much better if I show you the second chart of how history repeated itself in 0.2. So this is the 0.2 chart as well. So the dots here a little bit harder to show, but let me just highlight over here. My Exalted Ops are in blue and Chaos Ops are in green over here. You can see in the first few, this is of course a slightly longer chart. In the first few weeks, Exalted Ops have always outperformed Chaos Ops. And then after that, there will be a switch where Chaos Ops begins to outperform. Of course, every league has its own specific nuance, and 0.2 league actually had fracturing ops and the new mechanics of fracturing that boosted Chaos Ops maybe a little bit more than it should. But Exalted has always outperformed in the beginning, which I mentioned on the previous video already. Exalted Ops always outperforms at the start. So what is the fundamental rationale why Exalted Ops usually outperform Chaos Ops? So we're talking about the first pair here, which is just your Exalted and Chaos. Forgive me for using the perfect because I thought it was just nicer to use this variety because it's just like 1-1-1 of everything. Exalted Ops outperform Chaos in the early parts of the league is because, why is that? When you first enter into your ending maps, you are looking for gear. You are exalting stuff, you're opening lines, rather than finishing your crafts or going for the next tier. So very often, the usage of Exalted Ops is significantly higher than the usage for Chaos Ops. So that is the fundamental difference between both of them. As the league progresses, you would start to have more items that have very fine lines. For example, something like this or like this, where you have many lines that are really very nice already, and you are maybe fine-tuning, looking for like the next line that you're going for, maybe just a little bit more stats. That's when Chaos usage starts to increase, and there's tons of gear in the market already. So Exalted use cases tend to decrease a little bit. That is for why there is this difference between Exalted and Chaos. Now then some of you will be like, okay, then that kind of makes sense why Exalted is doing better because of demand, use cases, blah, blah, blah. But why is Divine Ops underperforming so much? Because Divine Ops have always been a hedge for currency. So if you notice here, 1 to 57, first week in, let's just use, of course, every league is slightly different, but I just want to compare. This is, of course, not a number, how many Exalted is worth one divine. I have that data in this table that I calculated here. It's a little bit small, but you can see as of this date, right now, we are actually more or less in line. If you talk about, let's say 4th of April was the start, but it wasn't start because that's where I actually started collating, I believe. Maybe I was off by like 1-2 days. 7 days in, we are more or less in line with how it was from 0.2. What that tells us is at the very beginning, it was overbought, or divine was overbought. Meaning that all of that demand in the beginning where you had that massive divine spike is because people at the back of their mind already felt that Exalted is going to depreciate. So let's hide in divine, hide in divine, hide in divine. So everyone just kept selling Exalted when they can buy divine, sell Exalted, buy divine. So that created a artificially much higher pricing relative to the other true value of what it's worth in the economy. So when we see all these like prices, of course, this is a little bit different because if GGG nerfs and buffs the patch a little bit, all these numbers will change. I'm not saying that this will be 0.4 or 1.0's number that you should be looking at, but this is a very good reference to exactly see how it is. So generally, it was never 100. It never hit 100 in like the first 2 weeks of the league. So that tells us that it was very artificial already to begin with. This pump that we saw in divine prices going up to 100 was way overblown. Everyone was hiding in divine. And when the use cases of Exalted started to rise, when people actually wanted to use it, then they realized, oh, now we need Exalted. So let's switch back the currency. And as divine prices started to drop, people start panic selling and everyone's like, oh, why Exalt is going there? Let's hide in Exalt instead. And everyone starts to hold Exalt. And then you have a bit of reversal. But how many of you have farmed enough Exalted and haven't seen a single divine? I think rarity and use cases eventually will all even out. History has repeated itself so far. And that is what we are seeing just by this very quick snapshot of 1 week of data so far. Now, talking about history is nice, but we need to talk about the current present moment because explaining things that happened in the past is only just a good gauge. What is different in this league itself is that there are very new ways of using Exalted ops. In particular, you have this omen over here, the homogenizing exaltation. Now, this is very, very new, very fresh, and it's so powerful. We have guides on the channel already teaching you how to use the homogenizing omen, which is very good. I highly recommend you check that out. It's on the channel as well. Very many strategies that revolve around this omen tool. So use cases for this is increasing because people realize as you are watching our videos that we are putting out regularly, you will have known the Exalted ops use cases are way more now and all the meta crafts revolve around Exalted op. So that's another reason why it's pushing the price even more because the economics is one thing, but use cases is the primary driver of markets as well. So this one's super strong. A lot of people are going into it. A lot of people are crafting. And the next thing is chaos demand really hasn't picked up yet. And we see that in something like the fracturing op. Two items that generally go in tandem with price is the fracturing op as well as the chaos ops. For majority of this period, fracturing op and chaos op hasn't been changing too much. Why is that the case? Is because previously, the last season's meta, what it is you will fracture one line and you'll chaos and find the perfect second line. Now you don't need to spend so much resource and chaos spam because Abyss crafting is in the game right now. And Abyss crafting is only, well, from what we know in this league, so this is an exceptional moment. So this is driving the price of chaos down because you no longer have that fracturing and chaos requirement to find a nice second line. Now you can easily just do a desecration and you can see very clearly your abyssal echoes, your abyssal of light, these kind of things have actually been rising in price ever since we started creating a lot more content on the use cases as well for Abyss crafting to make money from it. This was actually less than a divine. Now it's going for almost 2 divines. So you can see people are moving into crafting, but these early game crafting. At the end of the day, desecration will not get you the perfect piece. You still have to use a lot of other combination of stuff. And to make, if you want to make a mirror and earn a lot of money, there are other guides on the channel that teaches you what to focus on because looking at these prices and seeing the changes are nice, but don't let it take up too much of your brain space because at the end of the day, turning these into making more currency is much more important than looking at these micro fluctuations, especially once you know this content already, everything starts to make sense a little bit more. So where do we go from here, which is the third part? Now that we talked about the current present difference in this league, we talked about the previous league example, the next thing is where do we go from here? I don't think that Exalt prices will outperform Divine Ops until Exalt prices will be the new standard Divine Ops. That is kind of impossible, especially because Exalt Ops, for those of you who haven't seen it so far, drop very, very commonly. I've gotten almost every map that I go to, I get at least a couple of Exalts. Without any like rarity on my gear, don't have rarity at all, and I just keep getting Exalted. It's very, very common. So right now in the early game, people are getting gear that are okay, maybe not at like these kind, because mine is almost like end league gear already on the first week. Because I teach you guys how to make money in this league and how to craft. We are a market focused channel as well. People will stop using Exalteds and the Divine prices will eventually keep going back up, because Divine is the ultimate hitch and people haven't even begun like sanctifying their stuff. People haven't even begun re-rolling their lines and looking for like better lines as well. At the same time, one thing that is not touched on is mirror prices. Even though Exalt prices have been outperforming your Divine Ops, something that is left to be said is the mirror prices still outpace Exalted Ops. Of course, this is the sell queue. It's not 900 Exalts to one mirror. This is just the people who are hoping to buy it for 1,000 Exalts. But mirror prices, if you convert it, still the ratio to Exalted Op is about there. So this is still the hallmark and you want to move into this as quickly as you can, which is why we are going to be starting the EOD banking system as well. That is open to everyone, and of course in stages. I'm still very, very busy, so I'll gradually tell you more information. For those of you who don't know, the EOD banking system is a group of us pool money together to hedge out our resources, and that is the much better way rather than worrying about the micro fluctuations of everything. I hope this video gave you a bit more insight as well. If you're interested in more of these like market talk, do consider joining as a member of the channel, supporting us. It really helps us put in the hours of work that we have, trying to do up the slides and the sheets and data that we have to give you the guys these kind of information. And thank you guys again so much for watching. Hope this helped, and see you guys in the next video.